Commander Jake Morrison walked into the huge meeting room on the space station. The room was bigger than a football field and filled with creatures from all over the galaxy. Some had 6 arms, others had skin like rocks, and a few glowed with their own light. They all turned to look at him as he entered. Jake was one of only 3 humans in the room. The other 2 were his helpers, Lieutenant Amy Foster and Sergeant Don Miller. The aliens always stared at humans like they were something strange and scary. Jake had gotten used to it over the years. In the center of the room was a massive map made of light. It showed the entire galaxy with billions of stars, trade routes, and the borders of different alien nations. Jake had seen this map many times before, but today he noticed something odd about it. The map just stopped at the edge of human space. Amy noticed it too. She walked closer to Jake and whispered, "Sir, look at the map. It's like the galaxy ends where human space begins." Jake nodded. He had been thinking the same thing. Every time he came to these meetings, the aliens showed maps that treated human territory like it was the edge of the universe. There were no stars marked beyond human borders, no trade routes, no planets, nothing. The meeting began with the usual boring talk about trade agreements and shipping lanes. The Zentari ambassador, a tall creature with purple skin and 4 eyes, spoke about mining rights. The Vrex delegate, who looked like a giant octopus with a business suit, complained about pirates attacking his people's cargo ships. Jake waited for the right moment. When there was a break in the conversation, he stood up. All the aliens in the room turned to look at him. Some of them seemed nervous. "I have a question," Jake said in a clear, strong voice. "Why does every galactic map end at human space?" The room became very quiet. Jake could hear the air recycling systems humming in the walls. The aliens looked at each other, but nobody wanted to speak first. Jake continued, "surely there are more stars beyond our borders. The galaxy doesn't just stop existing at the edge of human territory." Council Speaker Thexmore of the Hegemony finally spoke up. He was a big creature. God looked like he was made of living stone. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "The boundaries are traditional, Commander Morrison. Ancient protocols that have served us well for thousands of years. But that doesn't answer my question," Jake said. "I've studied astronomy. I know there are more stars out there. So why aren't they on any of your maps?" The crystalline ethereals, who were beings made of living light, started to dim. This was a sign that they were getting upset or scared. The Vrex ambassador's tentacles began to twitch, which Amy had learned meant he was nervous. "Perhaps," said the Zentari ambassador, "this is not the appropriate forum for such questions." "Why not?" Jake asked. "This is the Galactic Council. If we can't discuss the galaxy here, where can we discuss it?" More uncomfortable silence. Jake noticed that several of the alien delegates were looking toward the exits. Some of them were even backing away from the central map. Amy stepped forward. "Commanders, we've been part of this council for 20 years. We've followed all your rules, respected all your traditions, but we've never gotten a straight answer about why the maps end at our borders." The hegemony speaker made a sound like grinding stone. "Some boundaries exist for good reasons, young human. Wisdom sometimes means knowing when not to ask questions." "That's not an answer either," Jake said. "Look, we're not trying to cause trouble. We just want to understand. Are there other civilizations beyond human space? Are there dangers we should know about? Are there resources we could all benefit from?" The reaction was immediate and shocking. The Zentari ambassador suddenly remembered that he had urgent business on his homeworld. The Vrex delegate claimed that pirates were attacking his people's cargo ships and he needed to leave right away. Even the normally polite ethereals just disappeared, teleporting away without their usual goodbye speeches. Within 5 minutes, the huge meeting room was almost empty. Only a few minor delegates remained, and they were all packing up their things. As fast as they could, Don Miller watched the exodus with his mouth open. "Sir, I've never seen anything like that. It's like they're all terrified of something." Jake nodded grimly. "They're not just avoiding the question, Don, they're running away from it." Amy was studying the map that was still glowing in the center. of the room. Sir, look at this. Now that most of them are gone, I can access the map's control systems. She touched some buttons on the control panel. Watch what happens when I try to expand the view beyond human space. The map flickered and showed an error message. Access denied. Insufficient authorization level. Try using your diplomatic clearance, Jake suggested. Amy entered her codes. The same error message appeared. Sir, even with top-level diplomatic clearance, the system won't show us what's beyond our borders. Jake walked around the map, studying it from different angles. This isn't just tradition or protocol. This is a deliberate cover-up. They've programmed their systems to hide information from us. But why? Don asked. What could be out there that's so scary? Before Jake could answer, one of the minor delegates approached them. It was Ambassador Creedle from the Outer Rim. Mining Consortium? He was a small, furry creature who usually stayed quiet during meetings. Commander Morrison, Creedle said in a whisper, you should stop asking these questions. Why? Jake asked. What's the big secret? Creedle looked around nervously to make sure no one else was listening. Because some doors should stay closed. Some regions of space are forbidden for good reasons. What kind of reasons? The kind that kept our ancestors alive, Creedle said. The kind that allowed our civilizations to survive and grow. The kind that mean the difference between life and death for everyone in the galaxy. Jake leaned closer. Are you saying there's something dangerous out there? I'm saying that the maps end at human space because that's where safety ends, Creedle replied. Beyond your borders lies something that our people have spent thousands of years trying to forget. What is it? But Creedle was already walking. Away. Some knowledge is too dangerous to share, Commander. Some secrets are kept for everyone's protection. Jake, Amy, and Dan stood alone in the huge meeting room, surrounded by the glowing map that refused to show them the truth. The silence was heavy with unanswered questions. Sir, Amy said finally, what do we do now? Jake stared at the map for a long moment. We find out what they're hiding. If there's something beyond our borders that affects the safety of the galaxy, we need to know about it, even if they don't want us to know. Especially if they don't want us to know, Jake said. The way they reacted tells us everything we need to know. They're not just keeping secrets, they're scared. And if the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy are afraid of what lies beyond human space, then we need to understand why. Dunn looked uncomfortable. Sir, maybe there's a good reason they don't want us to know. Maybe some things are better left alone. Jake shook his head. Dan, we're explorers. We're humans. We don't leave things alone just because they're scary or difficult. If there's something out there that threatens the galaxy, we need to face it. Amy nodded. Where do we start, sir? We start by asking better questions, Jake said. And we start by finding people who are willing to give us real answers. The map flickered and went dark, as if the station's computers had decided they had seen enough. But Jake Morrison was determined to uncover the truth no matter what the cost. The galaxy's elder races might be content to live in ignorance, but humanity would not be satisfied with half-truths and hidden knowledge. Something was out there beyond the edge of human space. Something that had shaped the entire structure of galactic civilization. And Jake Morrison intended to find out what it was. Captain Ryan Cole had always loved digging through old alien ruins. For 15 years, he had traveled from planet to planet, studying the remains of dead civilizations. He was good at putting together pieces of history that most people thought were lost forever. His partner, Dr. Lisa Morgan, was different from him. While Ryan liked to get his hands dirty digging through ruins, Lisa preferred to work with computer databases and ancient records. She had spent 10 years working as a diplomat before becoming an archaeologist, which meant she had access to files that most people could never see. They were sitting in their small office on the research station above Kepler 186f. The walls were covered with pictures of ancient alien buildings, star charts, and computer screens showing data from a dozen different dig sites. Ryan, I found something strange, Lisa said, looking up from her computer. I've been going through the classified hegemony archives, and there are huge gaps in their historical records. Ryan looked over at her screen. What kind of gaps? The kind that don't make sense, Lisa replied. Look at this timeline. The hegemony has detailed records going back 50,000 years, but there's a period about 12,000 years ago where almost everything is missing. Ryan walked over to look at the data. Maybe they just didn't keep good records back then. That's what I thought too, Lisa said, but then I found similar gaps in the Centauri archives, and the Vrex databases, and the ethereal memory crystals. Every single major civilization has the same missing period in their history. That's weird, Ryan admitted. What happened 12,000 years ago? Lisa pulled up more files on her computer. That's what I've been trying to figure out. But here's what's really strange. The records that do exist from that time period all talk about the same thing. They call it the Great Evacuation. Ryan sat down next to her. Evacuation from what? That's the problem. They never say, but look at this. Lisa showed him a map of the galaxy from 15,000 years ago. See all these star systems marked in red? They were all heavily populated back then. Major civilizations, big cities, important trade centers. What happened to them? They're all empty now, Lisa said. Every single one. The current Galactic. Maps mark them as uninhabitable or navigationally hazardous. But according to these old records, they used to be the most advanced parts of the galaxy. Ryan studied the map carefully. Lisa, these empty systems, where are they located? Lisa highlighted them on the map. Mostly in the outer rim. The areas that are now beyond the current galactic border. The areas that ... She stopped talking and stared at the screen. The areas that are now beyond human space, Ryan finished. They looked at each other for a long moment. The implications were starting to become clear. Lisa, pull up the records about human first contact with the galaxy. Lisa typed quickly on her computer. Here it is. According to official records, humans were discovered by accident by a Centauri exploration ship in 2156. The Centauri were supposedly surprised to find an intelligent species in such a remote area of the galaxy. But that's not what really happened, is it? Ryan asked. No, Lisa said quietly. Look at this. She pulled up another file. This is from the restricted hegemony archives. The aliens didn't discover humans by accident. They had been watching human space for thousands of years. Ryan read the file over her shoulder. It says here that the Galactic Council had been monitoring the Sol system since before humans developed space travel. They knew about us long before we knew about them. Keep reading, Lisa said. Ryan continued reading. The Council had standing orders to observe but not interfere with human development. They were waiting for something. Waiting for humans to reach a certain level of technology before making contact. But why? Lisa asked. Why would they watch us for so long without making contact? Ryan kept reading through the files. Lisa, this is incredible. According to these records, the Council wasn't just watching humans, they were afraid of us. Afraid of us? But we were just a primitive species stuck on one planet. That's what I thought too, Ryan said. But look at this. Report. It's from the Hegemony Science Division. They did genetic analysis on human DNA samples they collected from our early space missions. Lisa leaned closer to read the report. What did they find? They found that human DNA contains genetic markers that match samples from the evacuated systems. The systems that were abandoned 12,000 years ago. The room became very quiet. Lisa and Ryan stared at the computer screen, trying to understand what they were reading. Ryan, are you saying that humans used to live in those abandoned systems? Not just live there, Ryan said. According to this report, humans used to control those systems. The genetic evidence suggests that an advanced human civilization once existed throughout the outer rim of the galaxy. Lisa pulled up more files. But that's impossible. Human civilization is only a few thousand years old. We didn't even have space travel until recently. Unless, Ryan said slowly, the humans who live on Earth now aren't the first human civilization. Lisa's hands were shaking as she typed. Ryan, I'm cross-referencing the genetic data with archaeological evidence from the abandoned systems. The computer is finding matches. What kind of matches? Architectural patterns that match human building styles. Tool designs that fit human hands. Environmental controls set for human-compatible atmospheres and gravity levels. Ryan stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the planet Kepler 186f rotating slowly below them. Lisa, I think we've been looking at this all wrong. The aliens didn't discover humans by accident. They were waiting for us to come back. Come back from where? From Earth, Ryan said. I think our ancestors used to live throughout the galaxy. Then something happened 12,000 years ago. Something that forced them to evacuate all their colonies and retreat to Earth. Lisa was pulling up more files. Ryan, look at this. It's a report from the Vrex Intelligence Service. They've been monitoring human technological development very carefully. They're not just watching to see how fast we advance. They're watching to see if we develop the same technologies that our ancestors had. What kind of technologies? Advanced. Space travel, quantum computers, genetic engineering, energy weapons. Lisa paused. They're afraid that if humans regain their ancient technology, we might remember what happened 12,000 years ago. Ryan came back to the computer. And they're afraid we might want to go back to the abandoned systems. But why would that? Scare them? Lisa asked. If those systems are empty, why not let us resettle them? Ryan was quiet for a long time. Maybe they're not empty, Lisa. Maybe something else is living there now, something that our ancestors were running from. Lisa pulled up one more file. Ryan, this is the most classified document I've ever seen. It's marked with security levels. I didn't even know existed. What does it say? It's from the Council's military command. It's titled Contingency Plans for Human Expansion Beyond Current Borders. Ryan read over her shoulder. They have battle plans prepared in case humans try to explore beyond our current territory. They're ready to go to war to stop us from leaving human space. But why? Because, Ryan said, they know something we don't. They know what our ancestors were running from. And they're terrified that if we go back to the outer rim, we might wake it up. Lisa closed the files and leaned back in her chair. Ryan, what do we do with this information? We keep digging, Ryan said. We need to find out what happened 12,000 years ago. We need to know what our ancestors were running from. And if we find out, then we decide whether to wake up the rest of humanity, whether to tell them that we're not newcomers to the galaxy. We're the survivors of a civilization that once spanned the stars. Lisa looked out the window at the planet below. The aliens have been living alive for 12,000 years. They've built their entire civilization around the idea that the outer rim is forbidden's territory. And now humans are back, Ryan said. The question is, are we strong enough to face whatever our ancestors ran away from? They sat in silence for a while, both thinking about the implications of what they had discovered. The galaxy was not what it seemed. Humanity was not what it seemed. And somewhere in the abandoned systems beyond human space, something was waiting. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Taylor had been flying missions in deep space for 12 years, but he had never received orders like these. The message came directly from Earth Command, bypassing all the usual military channels. It was marked with the highest security classification he had ever seen. His ship, the INS Horizon, was being sent to explore the space beyond human borders. Not toward the galactic core where all the alien civilizations lived, but in the opposite direction. Into the areas that no galactic map had ever shown. Sir, are you sure about these coordinates? Asked Chief Navigator Kelly Adams. She was looking at her computer screen with a confused expression. According to every star chart we have, there's nothing out there. Then looked at the orders one more time. That's exactly why we're going, Kelly. Command wants to know what's really out there. The third member of their crew was Technical Specialist Mike Chen. He was responsible for running all the ship's sensors and analyzing anything they might find. Mike had been unusually quiet since they received their orders. Mike, what's wrong? Ben asked. Sir, I've been thinking about these orders, Mike said. Why would Command send us to explore empty space? They must know something we don't. Ben nodded. That's what I think too. But our job is to follow orders and find out what's really out there. The UN's Horizon was a small ship, but it was equipped with the most advanced sensors humanity had ever built. It was designed for long-range exploration missions in dangerous or unknown areas of space. They had been traveling for 3 days when Kelly made the first discovery. "Sir, I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors," she reported. "There's a star system about 2 light-years ahead of us, but it's not showing up on any of our charts." "What kind of star system?" Ben asked. "It looks like a normal yellow star with several planets," Kelly said. "But there's something else. I'm detecting artificial structures in orbit around the 3rd planet." Ben felt his heart rate increase. "What kind of artificial structures?" "Big ones, sir." "Really big?" "They're much larger than anything humans have ever built." Mike started running detailed scans as they got closer to the system. "Sir, these structures are incredible. They're not just big, they're ancient. The metal shows signs of being exposed to space radiation for thousands of years." When they finally arrived at the system, what they found took their breath away. The 3rd planet was surrounded by a massive ring of artificial structures. They were clearly the remains of what had once been a huge space station or orbital city. "Kelly, how big is this thing?" Ben asked. "Sir, if it was still intact, it would be about the size of Earth's moon," Kelly replied. "But it's been broken apart. It looks like it was destroyed in some kind of battle." Mike was analyzing the debris field with their most sensitive instruments. "Sir, I'm finding pieces of technology that are far more advanced than anything the current galactic civilizations have. This stuff is incredible." Ben studied the tactical display. "Any signs of recent activity?" "No, sir. Everything here has been dead for a very long time." "But, sir, there's something else. The design of these structures, the way they're built, it's not like anything the aliens use." "What do you mean?" "I mean the proportions are all wrong for the current galactic species," Mike explained. "The doorways are too small for the hegemony. The control panels are positioned wrong for the Zentari, but they would be perfect for humans." Ben felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying humans built this?" "I'm saying whoever built this was very similar to humans in size and body structure," Mike said. "The environmental controls are set for Earth-normal atmosphere and gravity. The lighting is designed for human vision. Even the color schemes match human preferences." They spent the next 6 hours exploring the debris field, collecting samples and taking detailed scans. What they found was evidence of a civilization that had once been incredibly advanced. The technology was far beyond anything modern humanity had achieved. "Sir, we need to keep moving," Kelly said. "Our orders are to survey the entire region, not just this one system." Ben nodded reluctantly. "Set course for the next system on our list." The second system they explored was even more shocking than the first. This one contained the remains of not just one orbital city, but dozens of them. The entire system had once been home to what must have been billions of people. "Mike, what happened here?" Ben asked. "It's hard to say, sir, but it looks like these installations were abandoned in a hurry. I'm finding evidence that they were evacuated rather than destroyed." "Evacuated to where?" "I don't know, sir. But whoever lived here left in a big hurry. They left behind technology, supplies, even personal belongings." Kelly was studying the navigation computers they had found in the wreckage. "Sir, I've managed to recover some data from their navigation systems. According to this, there are dozens more systems like this, one scattered throughout this region of space." "All of them abandoned?" Ben asked. "All of them," Kelly confirmed. "And sir, there's something else. The navigation data shows that all of these systems were connected by regular trade routes and communication networks. This wasn't just a few isolated colonies, this was a major civilization." They continued their survey, moving from system to system. Each one told the same story. Advanced civilizations that had once thrived in this region of space, all of them abandoned at approximately the same time period. Mike made the most disturbing discovery in the 7th system they explored. "Sir, I've found something you need to see." He had been analyzing the remains of what appeared to be a military installation. Unlike the other structures they had found, This one showed clear signs of battle damage. What is it, Mike? Sir, I've found weapons residue. Energy signatures. From the battle that destroyed this place. But the weapons weren't fired by any technology I recognize. What do you mean? I mean the energy signatures don't match anything in our databases. They're not human weapons, and they're not from any of the current galactic civilizations either. Ben studied the data on his screen. So who fired them? I don't know, sir. But whoever it was, they were using technology that's completely different from anything we've seen before. Kelly was running analysis on the battle damage patterns. Sir, based on the debris field, this wasn't just a single battle. This was a long war. The damage patterns suggest that fighting went on for years, maybe decades. Who was fighting who? Near as I can tell, it was the people who built these installations against someone else. Someone with completely different technology. Ben walked to the main viewing screen and stared out at the debris field. So, we have an advanced human-like civilization that once controlled this entire region of space. Then they fought a long war against an unknown enemy. And finally, they abandoned everything and fled. That's what it looks like, sir, Mike said. But fled to where? Ben asked. And why haven't we found any trace of the enemy? Kelly had been working on the navigation data. Sir, I think I know where they fled to. The navigation computers show massive evacuation routes, all leading in the same direction. Which direction? Toward the area that's now human space, sir, toward Earth. The three crew members stood in silence for a long moment, trying to process what they had discovered. The implications were staggering. Sir, Mike said finally, what? If the humans on Earth aren't the first human civilization, what if we're the descendants of the people who built all this? Ben nodded slowly. That would explain why the aliens are so afraid of us expanding beyond our current borders. They know what we used to be capable of. But it doesn't explain what happened to the enemy, Kelly pointed out. If this unknown civilization was powerful enough to drive our ancestors away from all of this, where did they go? Ben looked back. At the debris field. Maybe they're still out there. Maybe that's why the aliens are so afraid of us coming back to this region. Sir, should we continue the survey? Mike asked. Yes, Ben said, but we need to be very careful. If there's still something dangerous out here, we need to know about it before we go any further. As the Earth's horizon moved on to the next system, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, something was waiting. Something that had driven humanity's ancestors away from their galactic empire and back to a single small planet at the edge of nowhere. The question was, would that something still be there when humanity finally returned home? Dr. Paul Stevens had been studying alien ruins for most of his adult life, but he had never seen anything like what his team had discovered on the planet in the Kepler 442 system. The world looked dead from orbit, just another lifeless rock floating in space. But their ground-penetrating radar had found something incredible buried beneath miles of accumulated dirt and debris. Research team leader Susan Wright was coordinating the dig from their base camp on the surface. She directed the automated digging machines and archaeological robots through the massive underground structure they had uncovered. The facility was huge, clearly built for some important purpose. Paul, you need to get down here right now, Susan called over the radio. We found something that changes everything. Paul climbed down into the excavation site, following the metal walkways his team had installed. The deeper he went, the more amazed he became. The underground facility was not just big, it was perfectly preserved. After thousands of years buried under rock and dirt, the structure looked like it had been abandoned yesterday. Susan, this is incredible, Paul said as he reached the main chamber. How is it in such good condition? The whole place is sealed, Susan explained. No air, no water, no bacteria. It's been in perfect vacuum for thousands of years, but the most shocking discovery was still to come. As Paul examined the control panels and computer terminals, he realized something that made his hands shake. Susan, look at these controls, he said. The buttons are the right size for human hands. The screens are at the right height for human eyes. The chairs are designed for human bodies. Susan nodded. Paul, this facility was built by humans. Ancient humans, but humans nonetheless. Paul walked through the corridors, studying the architecture and design. Everything about the place was familiar yet advanced. It was like seeing what human civilization might look like thousands of years in the future. "Have you found any computer systems that still work?" Paul asked. "Just one," Susan said. "Follow me." She led him to a room deep in the center of the facility. Inside was a massive computer system, bigger than anything Paul had ever seen. Most of it was dark and dead, but one small section was still glowing with soft blue light. "It's been running on emergency power for thousands of years," Susan explained. "The power source is some kind of advanced technology I don't recognize." Paul approached the active terminal carefully. "Have you tried to access it? I was waiting for you. I thought you should be the first to see what's in there." Paul sat down at the terminal and began working with the computer interface. The system was incredibly advanced, but it was designed for human use. After several hours of careful work, he managed to access the main database. What he found inside made his blood run cold. "Susan, look at this," Paul said, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is a historical record. A record of the first human civilization." The database contained thousands of files, detailing the rise and fall of an advanced human society that had once controlled hundreds of star systems. They had been explorers, scientists, and builders. They had created wonders that modern humanity could barely imagine, but they had also been warriors. "Paul, what is this file marked Final War?" Susan asked. Paul opened the file with trembling hands. Inside were detailed reports of a conflict that had lasted for centuries. The ancient humans had been fighting something, but it wasn't any of the current galactic civilizations. "Susan, the enemy they were fighting wasn't biological," Paul said. "It was something else entirely." The reports described an entity that could take control of entire civilizations. It would arrive in a star system and somehow corrupt the inhabitants, turning them into weapons against their own people. Entire planets would fall under its influence within days. "It's like a virus," Susan said, reading over Paul's shoulder. "But instead of infecting bodies, it infects minds." Paul continued reading through the tactical reports. The ancient humans had tried everything to fight this entity. They had built massive fleets, developed powerful weapons, and created advanced defensive systems, but nothing had worked. The enemy kept spreading, system by system, turning conquered populations into more soldiers for its army. "Paul, look at this tactical analysis," Susan said. "According to this, the entity doesn't just control people. It learns from them. Every civilization it conquers makes it smarter and more dangerous." The reports painted a picture of a desperate war. The ancient humans had been losing ground for decades, gradually forced back toward the galactic rim as the entity gained control of system after system. "Susan, they weren't just fighting for their own survival," Paul realized. "They were fighting to protect the entire galaxy. If this entity had continued spreading, it would have consumed every civilization in known space." The final entries in the database were the most disturbing. The ancient humans had developed a plan to stop the entity, but the cost would be enormous. "Paul, are you reading this?" Susan asked. "They built some kind of containment system. A way to trap the entity in a pocket dimension." Paul studied the technical specifications. "It's incredible. They used their most advanced technology to create a barrier that would separate the entity from normal space." "But Susan, look at the power requirements." Susan read the data and gasped. They had to sacrifice their entire civilization. Every colony, every space station, every trace of their existence. The power source for the containment system was their own life energy. "They committed suicide to save the galaxy," Paul said quietly, but the database contained one more revelation. The ancient humans had not just died to create the containment system. They had also programmed their descendants to return when the time was right. "Paul, this is a message addressed to future generations of humanity," Susan said. "They're talking to us," The message explained that the containment system was not permanent. It required constant maintenance, and the ancient humans had known they would not be around to provide it. So they had programmed their genetic descendants to develop the necessary technology and return to take over maintenance duties. The barrier is failing, Paul realized. That's why we're here. That's why humanity has suddenly become interested in exploring beyond our borders. Susan was studying the containment system specifications. Paul, according to this, we're already past the deadline. The system should have been renewed 1,000 years ago. How long do we have? Based on the deterioration rate, maybe 50 years, maybe less. Paul leaned back in his chair, overwhelmed by the implications. The aliens know about this. That's why they've been so careful around us. They've been waiting for us to remember our heritage and take over from our ancestors. But, Paul, what if we're not ready? What if modern humanity isn't advanced enough to maintain the containment system? Paul looked at the technical specifications again. Then the entity breaks free. And this time, it won't just be fighting ancient humans. It will be fighting the entire galaxy with thousands of years of accumulated knowledge and power. Susan walked to the viewing screen that showed the surface of the planet above them. The galactic maps end at human space because that's where the real responsibility begins. We're not just another species exploring the galaxy. We're the guardians of the galaxy. Paul saved all the data from the ancient computer system. We need to get this information back to Earth immediately. Humanity needs to know what they're really dealing with. And if they decide they're not ready to take on the responsibility? Paul looked at the containment system specifications one more time. Then we all find out what scared our ancestors so badly that they were willing to die, rather than let it escape. As they prepared to leave the ancient facility, Paul couldn't help but think about the irony of the situation. The aliens had spent thousands of years being afraid of humanity, not because humans were dangerous, but because they were afraid humans might not be dangerous enough when the time came to face the ancient enemy once again. The galaxy's safety depended on humanity remembering who they really were and accepting the burden their ancestors had died to create. The question was, would modern humanity be brave enough to sacrifice everything for the greater good, just as their ancestors had done? Admiral Jack Harrison stood in the war room deep beneath the surface of Earth. The room was filled with the most important people in human government and military. Everyone who needed to know the truth about humanity's place in the galaxy was gathered around the massive conference table. The discoveries of the past few months had changed everything. The reports from Commander Morrison, Captain Cole, Lieutenant Colonel Taylor, and Dr. Stevens had painted a picture that no one had expected. Humanity wasn't just another species that had stumbled into galactic civilization. They were the descendants of the galaxy's former guardians. Dr. Christine Martinez was the lead scientist on what they now called the Ancient Human Project. She had spent weeks studying the data recovered from the buried facility and the ruined star systems. Her findings were both amazing and terrifying. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dr. Martinez began, "the containment system built by our ancestors is failing. According to our analysis, we have maybe 50 years before it collapses completely." The room was silent as everyone absorbed this information. 50 years seemed like a long time, but it was nothing compared to the scale of what they were dealing with. "What exactly are we containing?" asked General Robert Hayes, the head of Earth's military forces. "We call it the Devourer," Dr. Martinez replied. "It's not a physical being in the way we understand life. It's more like a living idea, a force that can take control of entire civilizations and turn them into extensions of itself." She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy 12,000 years ago. "Our ancestors controlled hundreds of star systems throughout the Outer Rim. They were explorers, scientists, and builders. But when the Devourer arrived, everything changed." The hologram showed how the ancient enemy had spread from system to system, consuming each civilization it encountered. The conquered populations became part of the Devourer's growing army, used to attack the next target. "The ancient humans fought for centuries," Dr. Martinez continued, but they were losing. The Devourer was too adaptable, too powerful. Every civilization it conquered made it stronger and smarter. Colonel Ashley Parker, commander of the Deep Space Defense Initiative, had been analyzing the tactical situation. So they built a containment system, a prison to lock the Devourer away from normal space. Not just a prison, Dr. Martinez corrected, a pocket dimension. They literally cut the Devourer off from our reality. But the energy required to maintain. The barrier was enormous. It took the life force of their entire civilization to power it. Admiral Harrison studied the technical specifications on his tablet. And now that power source is running out? Yes, Dr. Martinez said. The system was designed to last 10,000 years, assuming that human descendants would return to renew it. We're already 2,000 years past the deadline. The implications were staggering. If the containment system failed, the Devourer would return to normal space. But this time, it wouldn't just be facing ancient humans. It would be facing an entire galaxy filled with advanced civilizations, all of which would become weapons in its hands if it succeeded in conquering them. What do the aliens know about this? Asked Dr. Helen Adams, the director of Human-Alien Relations. They know everything, Admiral Harrison replied. They've been watching us for thousands of years, waiting for us to remember our heritage. That's why they've been so careful not to provoke us. They need us to voluntarily accept our role as guardians. Colonel Parker pulled up a map showing the current galactic situation. The alien civilizations have built their entire society around, staying as far away from the outer rim as possible. They've clustered together in the galactic core, leaving the areas closest to the containment system completely uninhabited. Except for us, Dr. Martinez added. Human space is positioned right at the boundary between the safe zone and the containment area. We're literally standing guard without knowing it. The room fell silent as everyone considered the choice before them. They could continue with humanity's current expansion plans, exploring and colonizing throughout the galaxy. But if they did that, there would be no one left to maintain the containment system. Eventually, the Devourer would break free, or they could accept their ancestral burden and dedicate their entire civilization to keeping the ancient enemy locked away. It would mean giving up their dreams of unlimited expansion, but it would also mean protecting trillions of lives across the galaxy. What would it take to renew the containment system? Admiral Harrison asked. Dr. Martinez pulled up another set of technical specifications. We would need to build a massive network of maintenance stations throughout the outer rim. Each station would require advanced technology and a permanent crew. We're talking about dedicating at least half of our population to the Guardian mission. And if we refuse? Then in 50 years, maybe less, the Devourer breaks free. And this time, it will have access to the combined knowledge and resources of every civilization in the galaxy. General Hayes leaned forward. How do we know the containment system will even work if we renew it? What if the Devourer has found a way to break through? We don't know, Dr. Martinez admitted. But according to the ancient records, the containment system held for over 10,000 years. If we can renew it properly, there's no reason it shouldn't hold for another 10,000. The debate continued for hours. Some argued that humanity should focus on building up their own defenses instead of taking responsibility for the entire galaxy. Others pointed out that if the Devourer broke free, no amount of human military power would be enough to stop it. Finally, Admiral Harrison called for a vote. We need to make a decision. Do we accept our role as the galaxy's guardians, or do we continue on our current path and hope for the best? The vote was not even close. Every single person in the room voted to accept the guardian responsibility. Not because they wanted to, but because it was the right thing to do. Very well, Admiral Harrison said. We accept our ancestral burden. Dr. Martinez, I want you to begin immediate preparations for the renewal mission. Colonel Parker, start planning the construction of the maintenance stations. General Hayes will need to restructure our entire military to support the Guardian mission. As the meeting broke up, Dr. Martinez approached Admiral Harrison. Sir, there's one more thing you should know. The alien civilizations have been preparing for this moment. They've been building ships, weapons, and support systems for thousands of years. They're ready to help us, but only if we voluntarily accept the guardian role. Why didn't they tell us about this earlier? Because they were afraid we'd make the wrong choice. They needed to be sure that we would accept the responsibility willingly, not because we were forced into it. Admiral Harrison looked at the holographic display showing the galaxy. So they've been living in fear for 12,000 years, waiting for us to remember who we are. Yes, sir. And now that we have, they're ready to support us. The Zentari have developed new containment technologies. The Vrex have built supply ships designed specifically for long-term missions in the Outer Rim. Even the Ethereals have been developing new forms of energy that can help power the containment system. They've been planning this for 12,000 years? Yes, sir. The entire galactic civilization has been built around the assumption that humans would eventually return to their guardian role. They've been waiting for us to come home. Admiral Harrison smiled grimly. Well then, I guess it's time to let them know we're ready. Within days, the news spread throughout human space. Humanity had a choice to make, and they had chosen to protect the galaxy rather than pursue their own expansion. It was a decision that would define human civilization for the next 10,000 years. The galactic maps would continue to end at human space, but now everyone understood why. They weren't just marking the boundary of one species' territory. They were marking the line between the safe galaxy and the ancient responsibility that lay beyond. Humanity was going home to take up the burden. Their ancestors had died to create, and this time they would not be alone. The entire galaxy would stand behind them, just as it had been preparing to do for 12,000 years. The age of human expansion was over. The age of human guardianship had begun.